Welcome everyone to the Resonance Academy's virtual classroom. My name is Teresa Collins and I'm the Academy Director. And I love that we open up our virtual classroom on the equinoxes and the solstice to give interested people like you a chance to get a taste of what it's like to be in the Academy and what we have to offer. And we want to make the vital research and information of the delegate community is exploring for other people in the community. So we really love doing these special events. The session today is going to mirror one of the regular sessions that we do with our delegates every month, and that is a Q&A with Nassim Haramein, who is the Director of Research, and I'm going to pin his video. Hey, Nassim. Hey. Thanks for joining us today for this call. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do these things.
It's great to be on. It's great to connect with the community out large out there. You know, the delegate program community is always fun for sure, and it's exciting to get to talk to them every month. And as well, it's great to be able to reach out into the wild out there and talk to everybody. So I look forward to some of the questions that are gonna come my way.
Great, thanks, Nassim. So if you're on the if you're on our Zoom line, you'll see that at the bottom there's a little folder that says Q&A, and that's the place where you want to put your questions today, because we're going to actually take your questions, and that's how it's going to guide the process. And with us today is William Brown. I'm going to spotlight William's video there. William is part of our research staff at the Resonance Science Foundation and also one of our faculty members. And he's going to be looking at your questions, and he's going to be posing some questions to Nassim throughout the event. So thank you, William, for coming on today.
Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Really looking forward to today's conversation and getting into some of these always very amazing and interesting questions that lead to very amazing and interesting discussions. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much, William. And then also, if you're on Facebook Live today, because we're doing Facebook Live, Jamie Janover is manning Facebook Live for us, and you can also post questions there in the posts. And if maybe you could write question first, so Jamie can kind of tell which ones are the questions and which ones are comments, he can then come on and give us some questions as well. Hey, Jamie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Great. And then also you can see if you're on Facebook Live, or also if you're on the Zoom line, there's a chat on the Zoom line. And that's the place where we love for you right now, if you want, some of you are already doing that, is say your name and where you're calling in from. If you're a delegate, let us know that. We've had a lot of new delegates join the Academy recently, so we're really excited. We've got such a beautiful, strong, global learning community exploring unified science and consciousness and its implications and applications, and boy, are we having a great time. And you'll kind of get a feel for that today as we go through the process. Today's the equinox, and if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's spring equinox, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the fall equinox. And the equinox marks the day in the Earth's yearly cycle when the sun shines directly at the equator, making it day and night equally. And the equinoxes and solstices have been celebrated throughout our history, and we're really excited that we're taking this time each kind of cycle to come on and be with the public. And for me, the spring equinox is a great time to start new things and set clear intentions for my life and make commitments to really act on them. And that's a lot of what our learning community is doing. We're really exploring new ideas, and we're really choosing to bring them fully embodied in our life. And the fall equinox, if that's you, and I love that we have that always, right? Then it's a great time to reflect on your intentions from the spring and see what's been birthed and get ready for going deeper inside yourself. So whatever it is for you, we're really happy that you joined the call today. And may our call support you in your intentions and reflections, inspire you to learn and grow and serve in new ways, And it's a time really for all of us to step up and be our best and be of great service in the world. So hopefully this call will inspire that in you. So I'm going to turn it over to Nassim. He might have some opening comments he might want to make about spring equinox or what's happening at the Resonance Science Foundation. And then we'll have William begin to do questions. And if you're on the Zoom line, we're going to bring you on camera if you ask a question. If you don't want to do that, you can leave your video off, but we'd love to see you also and get a sense of who's calling in. So Nassim, off to you. Let me spotlight your video. All right, we got a little technical difficulty going on. Let me try spotlighting William. Are we on William now? Seems to be working just fine. It was Nassim being invisible for the day. William, what's going on with the research? Are you working on more of stuff with the art crystals, and how is it going with that?
Yeah, we've been doing some really exciting research with around the art crystals, the resonance-based technology. We've got a fellow researcher that's in the area who we've been collaborating with for a number of years now. And we finally got a chance to meet with him and actually do some direct experiments together using some pretty cool technological systems that he had, like electrochemical impedance spectroscopy, which just gave phenomenal results because we were able to measure real physical changes, particularly a change in the impedance of our water samples when they were treated with the art crystal. So it was pretty exciting data to get in. And so we're going to be extending that area of measurement and investigation to further characterize the effects that the crystals have just been obviously having on water. We've documented it in a number of different ways, but we're going to be really refining it. I mean, we're even talking about, eventually we're going to be doing spectroscopy techniques to look at the bond angle of water, its rotational and vibrational characteristics at the molecular level. So we're going to be looking at what's going on with the water at the most basic level, the molecular level. So it's going to be
fantastic. Wow, that's really fantastic news, William. I'm so glad to hear it. And I know our delegates will get more and more of that information coming up soon. Hey, looks like Nassim's back. Let's see if we can spotlight him this time. Yay, it worked. Somebody said your arc, somebody said something about your arc polarized your PSUs.
Well, I caught some of the stuff that William was saying, and it is exciting that we're able to make direct measurement. And what is really remarkable is the change and how consistent the change is in the impedance of the water in its terms of its molecular chemistry, and the amount of negative ions available, and all that's coming from a passive device, basically a little crystal that's sitting underneath the water, and in order to change the pH or the amount of negative ions in the water or its conductivity to the extreme that we see in those tests, at least the preliminary test that we've done, we're correlating with the plant test, and so we need to do a lot of trial to have significant statistical results. But so far it's 100%, I guess, William. But basically, when the impedance dropped, the plants, the impedance dropped dramatically. There's more charge in the water. The plants react very positively. But like I was saying, in order to get that level of changes in water structure or water energy levels, literally in terms of negative ions and so on, usually you'd have, you know, some hydrolytics type of system in which you're, you know, putting some significant DC current into the water to energize it or ionize it, and so on. And that is not happening in our case. You know, you have a passive crystalline device that is just sitting under the water for some 45 minutes. And so it really is remarkable. You know, and it's consistent so far. Everything we've seen seems to support that the system is consistent, that that the impact on biology, the way cells react to it, the way hydration occurs in the plant, the way mineral transport and nutrients are being able to be better transported by the water, and all this is I find it really interesting and remarkable, and supportive of the idea that the structure of space-time is where actually the coherent behavior and energy levels of systems, specifically, you know, water compound, water structure, and the interaction of the water molecule with biological structure, that it's all happening at a scale or at a level that is consistent with the Planck field and its coherent behavior in that region of space. And that's remarkable. It's remarkable because it's not, you know, you'd expect, because you think of it as a subtle effect, you'd expect that it would be a subtle measurement, you'd need a very precise, subtle measurement. You'd see very subtle changes, very small, subtle changes, and that's not at all what you see. They're actually very significant, gross changes in the water energy level and the water structure. So it's exciting to see.
Awesome, Nassim. Well, are you ready for a question?
Yes,
should we start with that?
Let's go at it.
Right.
I'm sure there's good ones out there.
I know. So William, how about you? Is there a question you think would be good for us to start with today? And
there's a lot of good questions. It's going to be difficult to select them because it'd be just great if we could get to most of these. But there's a really a good one, I think, to start off with from Tommaso Bacca. And the question is, so what exactly is energy? We can say it's a kind of wave function or fluctuation, but on an ontological and scientific point of view, what is energy, or what is the most fundamental pattern of reality? Is it something closer to a concept of information, or something closer to a concept of feeling or emotion? Or is it something else, like a dynamic that involves different things like information, emotions, communication, consciousness, awareness, all in the same recipient? So pretty deep question there on what is energy.
Okay, starting easy on me.
No warm up this time.
Here's Tommaso, just so you get a face for the question, Nassim.
Hi, nice to meet you. So just basically, what is the source of creation, or what is creation, right? Well, okay, let's just start easy. Well, you know, first, it's important to understand, and people don't necessarily realize this, that the standard models of physics and mainstream science so far has not been able to identify exactly what energy is. You know, we have that word. We have some mechanism in which we know that if we move electrons from over there to over here, or if there's an exchange of at least wave function across, you know, a certain linear path of electrons, there's a current that's produced that we call electricity. You know, we know that there's a charge that's produced that we call electromagnetism or magnetism. You know, and then they can be electromagnetic transforms as well, and so on. But I think the closest we got to knowing what energy is E equals mc squared, which, you know, tells us that energy or mass is equivalent to energy, or the other way around. And so the thing is that there is nothing in the standard model other than the Higgs mechanism, which doesn't do a very good job at it, you know, explain what actually mass is. So if you have E equals mc squared and we don't know what m is, right? We don't know what mass is. What is that? Like, how does that, you know, manifest in the universe? All of a sudden you have mass, you have protons, all of a sudden they have mass, right? And they produce the mass. I mean, mostly the mass of the universe is all protons because the electron is insignificant relative to the proton. And so basically, you know, you have these little charge region in space that exhibit this effect that we call mass, or has an impact on gravitation, right? So it produces gravitational effects we call mass, or mass produce gravitational effects that we call gravity, right? Those are interchangeable as well according to general relativity. So so basically, m is unknown in the equation. C is unknown, meaning the speed of light. Is the speed of light for what reason? We don't know. So C is unknown. And since m and c is unknown, then the other side of the equation, the equal, on the other side, the equal, E is definitely an unknown. So you have a beautiful equation that tells you that there's a great correlation, there's an equivalence between energy and mass and the speed of light, but all of those are unknown, so you have an equivalence between unknowns. So what is energy? To get to the question, well, from what I found, you see, that's the beautiful part about the holographic mass solution, is that it tells you what mass is. It says that mass is actually the result of fluctuations in the structure of space-time at the Planck scale, right? But not just random fluctuation, relationships between the surface and volume of these fluctuations in a region of space, the surface boundary in terms of Planck oscillators relative to the volume of Planck oscillators, the exchange, and see, if you think of the Planck oscillators as little bits of information, as in information theory, then if you, like as in the holographic principle in the standard model, which produces the entropy of the system, well, if you think of the information exchange, right, now you get a concept that mass, that's what the equation says, basically, that mass is the result of, is the entropy relationship of the information on the inside trying to express itself on the surface, which is restricted because only a certain amount of Plancks can fit on the surface, and it's less than the inside. And the entropy of this bog rate, if you'd like, of this, you know, narrowing of the information flow, the entropy is what we call mass. And we find in these equations, just as a side note, so it's clear to people, that when you do the same entropic equation at the Planck scale, the Planck entity black hole is the only one in which the entropy is equal inside to the surface. So that's why we don't see it as mass in the structure of space, because if we did, the mass of the Planck, if the Planck mass of the field was expressed in gravity, the universe would have to shrink to the size of a walnut, you know, because it's so massive, the amount of energy in the space. but it doesn't express itself gravitationally because it has no entropy. That is, there's the same amount of information in the volume as on the surface. So everything, there's no pressure or heat or, entropy to the system, right? So, and I want to clarify in terms of entropy, when we calculate the entropy of a black hole, we're talking about the heat dissipation. And so you can think of it as energy now as a transfer of information across boundaries. So so energy is really the entropy of the information moving through a set of information boundaries. So think of a network, right? And that network is connected through micro wormholes at the Planck scale. And you can imagine that when there's certain ratio, the ratio of the wormhole that transfers the information to the surface and the amount of information present in that volume will dictate, and that's what the equation says, the amount of energy of the system or the amount of mass available. Yeah, you have a question? You have comments on that?
Can we say that, like, from everything you explained, can we say that, summarizing all the concepts, that maybe energy is like a concept that can be related to energy, can be like balance and resonance, like everything that forms reality goes to a balance, like,
yes.
Can we say that?
Yeah, like a tendency for the universe towards equilibrium. Right? Exactly. Yeah, and thus the entropy of the system. That is, it tends to want to release information to go back to equilibrium. So, you can think as well as in terms of inertia, which is another part of physics that hasn't been explained. There's nothing in physics that explains why inertia is inertia. Why does a body resist movement and then you have to put enough energy in it, and then when it gets going, then it has a tendency to want to continue going, right? All this, you start to understand this in terms as well of the way the information is being transferred in the system, the way the network of the micro wormholes are connecting to the event horizon so that, there's connection and disconnection. So you have to put energy into the system to get the wormhole connecting and disconnecting in the right fashion, so you get linear motion, right? And then it tends, the information starts to move, the information starts to transfer, it tends to want to continue to transfer, right? So, like all of a sudden, some of the fundamental principles of energy, mass, gravity, information, movement in the universe, meaning like all of a sudden you start to get a sense that if you move information in the correct way in the network, you could actually have information that's over here end up over there without having to go through all the points in between to get there, because you're just transferring through the micro wormhole network. So now you're starting to get a sense, oh wait, space travel very large distances and warp drives becomes possible, gravity control becomes possible, extraction of massive amount of energy from the vacuum structure becomes possible, creating coherent structures in the region of space, that is increasing the amount of information available in a region of space, as we do with those crystals and the water. You see, like I was saying, the water becomes energized. What I mean to say, if I'm more precise in the definition we just give, is that the water becomes higher content of information, right? More coherent in the, like the entropy of the system, we literally are able to measure the impedance change. So the impedance of the information through the system drops, right? There's more information available.
So can we say like information also can alter or like affect reality? Can a conscious being get inside a loop of information that is the reality, and then affect like really the
Well, you
let's
know,
say material
yes,
world?
yes. I mean, you're using a word that's very that's very broad, right? You say reality. What do you mean by that, right? I just
Everything.
yeah, I just showed you that actually the equation says that reality, that is protons and electrons, because we solve for the electrons now and all the table of elements, reality is actually the organization of that information in the Planck field. That's what we call reality. So you're never outside of it. You're always part of it. You're made out of that stuff. But yeah, you can start to think that you can experience reality at different levels of information, at different levels of awareness of the information network, you know, so that right away tells you something about your consciousness and your awareness and how you think about the world and how you think of yourself and your relationship to it, you know. But as well, you can start to think, wow, there's technological application to this understanding in terms of energy and transportation and space exploration that are tremendous.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Very, very honored to receive
Thank
this.
you.
All these
Very
things.
good question.
I
Thank
always
you so
follow
much,
you.
Tomasa.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you also to William.
So William, hey, William, how about one more from you, and then we'll see what Jamie might have from Facebook if there's some good questions there.
Okay. So this one is, I think, apropos for our equinox discussion. It's regarding the equinox, some of the celestial mechanics regarding the equinox. And it's from John Zamora, who's asking if we could please explain the precession of the equinoxes. Is it real or not? Some say no, because the plane of the ecliptic is not exactly 90 degrees to the perpendicular of the sun, but actually goes above and below the plane, and that this is the real cause of precession. And you know, there's something that I was thinking about this, is that we often think that an equinox or solstice is a return to a specific point in the Earth's orbit around the sun. But the Earth never returns to the same point in its orbit around the sun, because the sun is moving. So it's kind of spiraling around the sun. So you know, your equinox is not really a return to the same location. You're never going to return to the same location in that progression.
You're only in the same position relative to the sun frame of reference, but the sun is moving in the galaxy, so you're not in the same coordinates in space-time, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
hey, here's let's meet John. Let's meet John really quick. Here's John. We can just say hi to John really quick before you answer your questions. Great.
But even, you know, even William, you know, if you wanted to be really, really precise, even relative to the frame of reference of the sun, we are not quite in the same position, because year after year, the precession is tilting the angle of the Earth a little bit different, you know, than, you know, on the turn before around the sun. And so we actually are not exactly in the same position, even to the frame of the sun. And that's commonly forgotten. Actually, that position was present relative to the frame of reference of the sun 26,000 and some years ago, you know, when the precession angle was exactly the same, because the precession angle cycle is about 26,000 years and some. And so, you know, but John, you want to make your question a little more precise? Can Can you explain
Yes.
the question a little better?
Does the Earth actually wobble, or is it just a misunderstanding because the plane is always listed as flat, and it really is above and below as the sun is moving through the galaxy?
No. Yeah, that's a good question actually, but no, the sun does precess, just like a top.
Does the Earth wobble? Does the
I'm sorry. The Earth wobbles. Yeah, it does that precession rotation. It's contrary to the rotation of the Earth, and it's very similar to if you take a top and you pump it, right? As the top slows down, the precession gets wider and wider. It's about a 22-degree angle precession currently, and so the axis of the Earth slowly rotate in the counter rotation to the rotation of the Earth, and it takes about 26,000 years, I think a little more. I can't remember exactly the number, and that precession is associated with the cycle of the zodiac and so on.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a really good question because it's been debated in some cases. I didn't agree with that view, but there was a thought that our solar system may be a binary star, and that was the cause of precession. But whether it is or not a binary star, precession should be present because spinning objects, spinning bodies, this is not well understood. You know why, John? Because actually, I keep saying this about all these things, but it's just a fact. Actually, gyroscopic effects are very complex. And Coriolis and gyroscopic effect are very complex. The nonlinear effects, and they are not that well understood. There's a lot that's still a mystery about spin angular momentum and gyroscopic effect. Movement in general, is not an obvious thing, John. You think we have this figure. And this is common to the physics that we have today, is that it addresses all sorts of complexity, but the basis principles like energy, mass, gravity, all these things are actually magnetism, are actually not understood. So for instance, we say my hand leaves at point A and arrives at point B, right? And we say, okay, well, how fast did it get there? Well, pretty straightforward. It took that much time to go from point A to point B, right? And for that distance, we can evaluate what is actually the speed of my hand. So let's say it was 1 mile an hour. Well, okay, that's nice, but that's only true very, very relatively to my frame of reference, because I would have to isolate my hand from the rest of the universe to be able to precisely make that assumption that my hand is going 1 mile an hour. In fact, if I'm honest about what I'm actually trying to measure, I would have to actually, as my hand moves from point A to point B, include the rotation of the Earth, right? Because that's a certain velocity relative to the whole of the universe. And then include the rotation of the Earth around the sun, include the movement of the sun through the galaxy, which is some 300 kilometers a second, and so on, and and keep adding those speed through, like, the galaxy moving in the cluster, that moving in the supercluster. So then eventually my hand is going thousands and thousands of miles per second, and it's approaching the speed of light. So what is my hand actually doing? What is movement is unclear. I mean, you have to really consider this. This is not just philosophy. It's like, if you want to be precise and get rid of the assumption of a closed system. That is, no such thing has ever been found. So like, I can't isolate my hand from the rest of the universe. I just can't. So I have to consider it. If I want to be totally honest, then my hand is probably not doing a linear motion like this from A to B. The only way I can solve this riddle of what movement is to realize that my hand is undoing itself, redoing itself, undoing itself, is redoing itself at the Planck's speed, at this Planck time, which is very, very fast, right? The Planck second is very, very fast. And so just like frames in a movie are like quantized stills, that if I play the movie just fast enough, it looks like smooth motion. Our reality is actually undoing itself and redoing itself and undoing itself and redoing itself. And when it redoes itself at the Planck scale, and you know, because the Planck second is way faster than 32 frames per second in a movie, you don't see the quantization, but this is actually how quantum physics would actually evolve. According to what I found, you know, this is why we ended up with quantum physics. We realized there's little packets of energy in the electromagnetic, like that the electromagnetic field is actually quantized, is because that's the information. So when the universe undoes itself, then it gathers the information that was gathered in that Planck second, which produced the redoing into the next Planck second. And if you put in the field, in the information that you want your hand to go that way, right? Well, it's gonna redo your hand one Planck, you know, seconds later in that direction, and then again and again and again and again, and it's gonna look like smooth motion. But you're actually undoing and redoing yourself. And so is your reality continuously. So that gives you actually really good insights in what you can achieve. Because I mean, if you can actually put information in the field that you want your hand going this way and the field does it, maybe you can put information in the field that you want to be a little bit different next Planck second and a little bit different next Planck. Or you might put in information in the field that you want your hand to undo in this Planck second here, but redo in this Planck, in the next Planck second over there, and not redo in all the points in between, right? And so now you start to get a sense of how space travel to very, very long distances, like quantum jumping or warping of space-time, can occur.
Is there any concept of where the memory is kept so you come back to the same place?
The memory is kept by the Planck field himself. Like the Planck field itself is, you know, the information network hard drive of the universe. So every Planck second, it's receiving information like a laser engraving on a medium, you know, on a magnetic medium. Like a DVD-ROM, CD-ROM or DVD, and so basically the Planck field is receiving all this information, and the correlation of the information collapses the waveform into the next moment continuously, you know, making the frames.
Fabulous. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay. Well, I'll be here.
Thank you, John. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your question. Appreciate it. All right, let's go to Jamie next and see if there might be a question, Jamie, on Facebook that we want to throw in the mix here.
Well, of course, the question that I had all lined up just disappeared down the chat. But the last name, I think the last name is Papadakis of the person who's asking. It was a pretty cool question. It had to do with light passing through a prism, and they were asking if energy is produced when light passes through a prism and it's split, kind of like, I think they said something about like if it was kind of like splitting an atom where energy is produced. Is there any energy produced when light passes through a prism, was their question.
Well, it depends what they mean by produce. You know, there's thermodynamic effects. They're very slight depending on how focused that energy is, that light beam is. But you know, that's why the crystal will heat up if you put it in the sun long enough. So you can think of that as energy produced as a result of photons interacting or hitting the, you know, the particles of the crystal itself. The photon, you know, can be thought as well, you know, as so I mean, you can get these little thing. They're kind of neat where you get these little lamps that have a little propeller in there, and they're in a vacuum in there, and you put it in the propeller is not turning, but you put it in the light, and then it starts slowly turning in there, and you basically are seeing the impact of the photons pressure on the propeller turning it. So yeah, if you could measure, for instance, if that propeller was tied into a very, very small, you know, generator, very, very well, you know, with no friction generator, it would produce a teeny amount of energy, you know, by its rotation. So you can think of it that way. You can think of the photons interacting with the medium as energy production that, you know, is dissipated in terms of thermodynamics in the crystal. I don't know if that answers the question. I would have to have a little bit more information about what the question, what was the intent of the question is what I'd like to know. But that's all I can say about it right now.
Unless this person chats on the thing again and tells me, asks me more in the Facebook chat. If Papadakis, if you're on here, you want to chat more on there. Otherwise, because we can't bring them on video because they're on Facebook. But
yes,
thanks for that.
Thanks for that question, Jamie. Let's go back to you, William. I know there are so many questions. Nassim, we're going to have to go a little longer today because we've only gotten a couple of questions in and we still have so many more to go. So
okay, that sounds good.
We'll keep going for a while.
Okay, as long as people can hang in there.
Yeah.
Please don't miss your doctor's appointment. Actually, in some cases, it might be the right thing to do.
You're so silly.
I said that. Oh.
All right, William, what's our next question on the docket today?
So we've got an interesting one from David Pillsworth. And this is a biophysics question. So I might comment on it a little bit before passing it over to Nassim, because it's very relevant to the biophysics paper we published, the Unified Space Memory Network. And it's David is asking, do the laws of physics create life across the cosmos? Are we the result of entropy? Life is simply what the universe creates in order to dissipate energy. And that, in answer to the first part of that question, it's yes, absolutely. The physics of the universe are such that wherever there is even the slightest suitability for life, it'll probably be there. And in fact, we've likened this with the term universal biogenesis, where life is emerging all over the cosmos. Almost anywhere it can emerge, you're probably going to find it. Now, in our paper, we link this to not so much the conventional idea of entropy, but instead looking at how systems are driven towards higher orders of coherence. All physical systems in the universe are being driven towards a higher organizational synergy and overall coherence. Now, we discussed some of the actual dynamics involved in this that make it so that the universe is driven towards kind of the epitome of organizational synergy and coherent structure, and that's the biological system. You know, that's where it can, that's some of the most highly organized, structured systems in the universe. And they play a very intrinsic role in the evolution and development of the universe. Now, it's definitely evident that the living system is extremely good at dissipating heat. So it is following entropy laws, but what you find is that you know, it's a far from equilibrium state. So it's the biological system is constantly taking in energy and using that with extreme efficiency and dissipating very little heat. But you can see how it is shaped to a certain extent by maximizing the dissipation of heat following the laws of entropy. But it's not just that life is just the blind result of entropic forces, especially in the conventional sense of entropy.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. We have David.
That's me, David. There he is. Hi, David.
Yeah, hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
In fact, it's not really my question. The question comes from a book, Origin, and it relates to a certain Professor Langdon, esteemed professor at a U.S. university. And I read this last week, and I really did begin to wonder if there was any truth in what he was saying. I mean, the basic message which he makes in his book is that because of entropy, there is no need for a God. And I'm not saying I completely disagree with that, but I think there are certain other points which Williams just highlighted in his reply, which need to be taken into account.
Right. It's not clear, you know, certainly not in the case of the conventional, you know, definition of entropy. Certainly, you know, if you have entropic behaviors that are producing high level of organization, you know, what we would tend to call negentropy effects, then you have something in which, if you're going to define God as the creative force or the creator of reality, then you certainly can associate the concept of God or creation to the negentropy function of the information transfer across the boundaries. So let me clarify a little bit. What I'm saying is that on the gauge level, that is on the local phenomenon of observation, you will see entropy. You will see dissipation of systems into disorder. However, if you look on the universal level, that is, if you back off from the local area, right? So the entropic effect that you see on the local area, you're calling energy, mass, and all this. But if you back out, you know, from this, and you see on the global level, you're actually looking at a system that's becoming more and more self-organized. You're looking at a system that is becoming more and more negentropic, right? It has more and more information, self-organizing capabilities, and structure capabilities as, you know, time goes on, as the ticks go on of the Planck field. So basically, the information complexity structure of the system increases. Do you see what I'm saying, David?
Yeah, I'll try and get hold of William's paper. I think it's an interesting point. But assuming, it must assume that the planets or life which develops is on a planet in a Goldilocks situation, so that life can start to form. Maybe William can comment on that.
Well, the Goldilocks idea is very strange. Especially there used to be kind of a Goldilocks principle for life on the surface of Earth. That, well, life can occur only in these sweet spots, under very particular conditions. But then you go and you look, and there's life under frozen lakes in Antarctica. There's life 2 miles down in the ground. There's life in the atmosphere. There's life at the bottom of the ocean and deep sea vents. So, you've got organisms.
All these violates the Goldilocks principle, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So according to that principle, there should be no life in those regions.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It's too cold. It's too hot. It's too dark. It's too everything.
Yeah.
So a planet out there that has these conditions, we would say there's no life on it, right? But we know on Earth that actually in those conditions we still find life, right?
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on today. All right, William, how about another one?
Okay. This is from Elizabeth Trutwin. We got one on black holes, always a fun topic. And she's asking if it's possible for black holes to merge, but it looks like she's specifically asking black holes inside of supermassive stars, are they able to merge?
I don't see Elizabeth on, so we'll.
Okay, you're trying to find.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, that's a good question. The merger can occur if the system actually is high enough in energy. It's important to understand that basically, think about it this way. Think of the gravitational effects of two objects interacting with each other is the exchange of information of these objects with the structure of the vacuum, right? This is what the equation is showing, right? Is that the mass of the object, right, is the result of the information going across the boundary of the event horizon, and out of it, you get gravity, you get the gravitational mass. Like if I apply the equation to a black hole in the universe, it works just as good as for a proton, and it's basically giving the correct answer for the gravitational effect of that mass, right? So basically think of it as the gravitational effects between two black holes is increasing. So there's more and more information exchange between the black hole as they're getting closer to close. Think of like, first of all, think of the micro wormholes, the Planck wormholes as like, like electrical discharges you see on these balls, these static balls inside little spheres of gases, and you turn them on, and if you touch it, you see like a discharge. Think of the wormholes as like discharges of information like that, right? They're connecting and disconnecting, right? And then as you approach two objects near to each other, there's more and more of these filaments that are connecting between the two. So it's increasing in that region of space. The information is increasing, and it's decreasing in the other regions of space. So the effect is that we see them being attracted to each other, right? Now, if you can imagine at one point there might be so much information exchange, right, between these two that the boundary condition in that region of space of these two objects become one, and then you'd get one black hole, right? So it could, you know, increase, but the conditions have to be correct, right, for that to happen. And it has to be that the angular momentum of the system is in the right relationship to the increase of energy, so that it permits the two boundaries to reach that level. If you increase the angular momentum, you know, so that the centrifugal forces are equal to the gravitational exchange of information, then the system will be in state of equilibrium. You'll have an equilibrium of orbit, right? You'll have an orbital region. And it will appear as the body of the system is actually stuck in some kind of groove, you know, which I believe is what we think of when we are describing quantum orbitals of electrons in the table of elements. So the relationship of the nuclei angular momentum relative to the electron defines where that electron falls, because it finds that neutral point where the centrifugal forces and the information exchange is equal. Does that make sense? I'm trying to give you like a little more, but you know, you can imagine, so you can imagine that you can have plenty of stuff orbiting a black hole in.
Okay, so yeah. I was asking this question in reference to Dr. Valbaker's paper and my CAM stars, but I was trying to imagine how it would happen inside of a proton Planck star and also inside the human body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a good question. If it could happen inside a nuclei, if you got the nuclei in the right condition so that you can merge the little proton black holes, first of all, you'd get a large energy event, but this would be what we call fusion, right? So that's what they've been attempting to do using tokamaks with zero success and billions and trillions of dollars of investment since the 60s, or even earlier. But basically, you can think about it in terms of if you're able to transfer information from the nuclei of an atom so that the transfer exceeds what is like the natural state of that nuclei, you could transform the nuclei from one orbital system to another, right? So you could make nuclei directly out of the structure of space-time. That means you would have transmutation capability of the atomic. So that, you know, now, can you do that with brute force like a tokamak? No way. And that's why they're not going to succeed, and they're not succeeding, because you won't be able to contain that level of energy. You know, they're trying to make like devices in which thousands of degrees higher than the surface of the sun has to be achieved to get those fusion things to happen. But actually, if you understand that, because it's coming from the entropic event side of the equation. But if you realize that the entropy is relative to the information exchange with the vacuum, then you can actually come from that side and make the information exchange with the vacuum increase in that region of space by increasing the coherency. How would you increase the coherency, by the way? By spinning the Planck field, right? You would increase the co-moving information network in that region of space, and you would transmute the nuclei. You would change the nuclei behavior. It's very straightforward engineering path when you understand these equations. It might sound really esoteric, but actually you should be able to even produce matter directly out of the Planck field, meaning you could take an incoherent region of space, that is the Planck field, where the Planck oscillators are not co-moving in that region of space. They're not making a little vortex we call an atom. And you could get it to do that in that region of space, literally produce mass or matter directly out of, space, out of the structure of space. It might sound completely insane, but the mainstream is already doing that. That is, the dynamical Casimir effect is a very inefficient way of doing that, because they're doing it with linear plates, oscillating them fast enough to, pop out little photons out of the vacuum. But we are extracting some information out of the vacuum already. Does that answer your question, Matter?
Yes, thank you very much, Nassim. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Appreciate it.
I'll get on the other side of that equation.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Say that again.
I said I'll get on the other side of that equation and do that movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Hey, we're going to go next to Jamie. He says he's got another good question from Facebook. So, Jamie, what's the question you got going there?
Lalana Rose asks, why are pyramids that have been built on the Earth pyramid-shaped instead of large tetrahedrons? Does it have something to do with octahedrons, as above, so below, or does it have to do with resonating capabilities, or what?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Well, if the structure of space-time is tetrahedral, I have some right behind me right there, right? And so edge-to-edge tetrahedral structure, which is, the most efficient way spheres would pack, is, based on the Planck field equations and the spherical oscillators, the PSU, we can extrapolate that actually the Planck field organized this way, like the flower of life way that's found in ancient civilization and all this. It produces cavitation in between the tetrahedrons that are octahedron, which is basically a pyramid is half of an octahedron. So yeah, if you're making devices that are meant to oscillate with the structure of space as resonance cavity, you'd probably want to build octahedrons, or at least pyramidal structure, half of an octahedron, to produce that fundamental resonance link to the structure of space. Now, all kinds of effects that are very unusual, nonlinear effects have been measured inside pyramids. And you don't need to go to Egypt, although those ones are beautiful and amazing and so on, but you can actually make one with matches, and a glue gun on your table and oriented the proper way. And you can actually have, effects that you can measure from just one simple, construction like this. And it has been measured through history in various ways. The Russians did a lot of research on this, as well as the Western world. In general, these effects are not understood, so they're not very publicized, although some of these effects have led to patents and so on. They're not very publicized because it's unclear why some geometry would produce you know, physical effects on matter or on compounds. It's definitely completely undefined in terms of like the mainstream trying to understand why that would be true. It's much more clear in the context of realizing that there's a fundamental structure field at the base of reality that all reality comes out of. So if you even come close to approaching the right geometry, you're going to start getting these kind of effects.
Great.
That's good that you said if you even come close to getting to these geometries, because somebody just asked, what about step pyramids, which is close to that geometry. But, you know, obviously they kind of nailed it with the Great Pyramid because they put those casing stones on there and made it really smooth and really accurate and really precise.
Yeah.
Which would, I would assume, help with the resonate.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know as well. Like nature, if you're doing biomimicking of the natural structures, you know, nature doesn't do, you know, the square root of 5 minus 1 or plus 1 over 2, you know, like perfect phi, you know, mathematical phi. It doesn't produce like, you know, a perfect elliptic. You know, it doesn't do exact. And because exact is infinite, like this is why it's an irrational number. But the universe does ratios, and it's attempting to achieve, just like the Fibonacci series doesn't give you exactly phi, right? It keeps missing it. So each ratio, you know, it's 1, 1, you know, 1, 2, you know, and then 2, 3, you know, and all this. Like you do the series, right? You just add the number before, you get the next one, and you keep doing that. And then you put them one over the other, and you'll get close to phi, right? As you get further and further down the series. And that's what you see in nature. You get close to phi, but as you do the series, it'll get closer and closer and closer, but it will never reach it, right? And you can mathematically prove that. But it will keep missing it. Above, it will be a little too big for phi, a little too small for phi, a little too big for phi, a little too small for, but getting there, right? So you could think like maybe the step pyramids are not as efficient. Maybe they're tuned to a different frequency, right? They're trying to achieve a certain quality of the energy. And you can think of the Giza pyramid when they had their casing stones. My God, it must have been incredibly beautiful. I mean, they were perfect, clearly perfect. Like, you know, some of the casing stones are still there, and you can see the edges were perfect. On the Ben pyramid, there's more casing stones that are left. And you take a picture of the edge, and it's insanely precise, right? In all this sense. So, you know, they might have been different qualities of extraction of energy from the system.
Great. Hey, Jamie, since we're on ancient cultures, or we're on this topic, I'm going to post in the chat your course that you're offering right now, which is open to the public on Ancient Egypt Revisited. So I want to put a little plug for that. It's a great course. Jamie's really kind of unpacking a lot of what we kind of began to discover when we were visiting Egypt this year, and taking it to a whole nother level. So you can still sign up and get caught up on the program. Tomorrow's the next live session. So check it out. Thanks, Jamie.
Really fun. Tomorrow we talk about Abydos and the Osirian temple, and then of course the Flower of Life symbol. So we'll get into all this.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. All right, I'm going to go back to William. William, I think let's go for 90 minutes total, which is another 15 minutes. Some people said they could stay on forever, or 6 hours, or keep going. So everybody's like with it, but I know you've got work to do, Nassim. So maybe we can take a couple more questions for today.
That sounds good.
I've got one from Stuart Rossi that I think might be an interesting discussion here. He says he's an independent researcher from the UK who met Nassim at his premiere.
Who was that again? William, sorry, I missed it.
Razzie?
Derek, you said?
Stewart.
Stewart. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. He's saying that he's designed a piece of equipment to work directly with space memory, and he's wondering if he could ask Nassim a couple questions around that. So you'd have to bring him on if you can do that, Teresa.
Yeah, let me find him. Stewart, I'm not seeing him. Oh, there he is. All right, Stewart, promote to panelists. Here we go.
There we go.
There we go. Hi, Stewart. Let's spotlight your video here. All right.
Hey, guy.
Hi, Nassim.
Hey, you look like a mad scientist in your laboratory.
We focus a lot of attention on plasma, and basically we've been working with DNA for probably a year now, and I run a small clinic in UK, and basically we found that DNA was storing all our negative memories and negative emotions, and so we went directly into the DNA, and we started erasing all these different things in our DNA. And what we found was that after obviously listening to numerous hours of your work, that that we needed to get into space memory, because like you say, we go through time and we leave this trail of memories. So basically we designed a piece of equipment so that we can, through a picture, is go into the vacuum and start working with somebody's, some people call it the Akashic record, some people call it space memory, to work with changing that memory so that they can live the life of their dreams, because the Akashic record, space memories, is creating their reality. And what we wanted to do was change that so that somebody could live the life of their dreams. And
yeah, that's wonderful. So how did you couple to the vacuum structure? Through plasma interaction?
Well, we were using plasma. We have
there's a Tesla coil there.
Yeah, there's
one. Did you build that one?
There's a Tesla coil. There's a multi-wave oscillator. If you see down there.
Yeah. I see down there. Very nice.
Down there.
Oh.
So I was talking to you at the London premiere, and I was showing you some pictures, some stuff I was using with plasma. And basically, what I just wanted to know was how do we connect to this space memory? Because it was, I knew there was something there that was beaming on us that I couldn't change. And I just wanted to know, I was connecting to the space memory through a picture, which is obviously a real-time image of you, but I just wanted to know how it was doing it. And it's very powerful. It's not something you can run for minutes or hours. It was like seconds, and we was running a formula and sending it straight into the space memory, and I was like, oh, this is very heavy. But I just want to know how we were connecting to that and why it was doing that back to us.
Okay, well, you must have had some address.
Yeah.
So what did you use for an address?
Well, we was using a picture.
There you go.
Yeah, we was using an image. I tried DNA.
Did you extract some of my DNA when we met?
No. But I found it easier with a picture, and then we were sending that into the vacuum time space, and it was very, very powerful. It sort of literally, we had no feedback. After we took the negativity away, different emotions, we had no feedback from the vacuum that was beaming on us.
I see. Well, okay, well, okay, so there was some of these devices that were built, you know, in the 70s, earlier even in the 50s, and some, you know, that were made illegal actually in the US at least, you know, because you could remote influence with them that way. You could change the information network in the vacuum. So it's easier to do an address send than to do an address retrieve. Right? Because in the address retrieve, you gotta compile a future event, right? Because you're changing, you know, the information, the structure of space in real time, in that moment of space. The future feed forward, you know, or feedback. I mean, you're doing a feed forward. The future feedback, you know, is a compilation of all instances in the universe producing the future. So, you know, there's variation of possibility. So in order for the device, so it's easier to remote influence than to actually get feedback from the result of the influence on the field in the future event, because result is, you know, already in the future, right? It's result me. So in order to do that, the system has to have a capacity to compute, right? The whole of the network, and so the plasma that you're using has to have enough coherency, enough coupling to the vacuum that you can extract the information, right? So if I was to help you engineer that, I would say, well, it's got to be a little more like the density of the plasma, and the energy level of the plasma has to be higher, but mostly not in terms of like heat or inputting more energy, but in terms of its coherent behavior, like a Bose-Einstein condensate, you know, where the whole thing becomes like one wave function. Then the information level is really high, right? So then you could actually, you know, get a sense of the projection forward, but the interpretation would be complex there, and the interface would be complex there. So, you know, it's not necessarily obvious, right? Human being can do it in precognitive function, because the complexity is so high, you know, that the interaction with the field can be high enough that you can get like a function of the probabilities of a certain instant in time in a future memory function. Think of it this way, like one way you could think of it, and this might help you in your engineering, is that a future event is a present for that Planck second in space-time, in those coordinates of the base memory network, right? So imagine, and this is actually what visualization is. You actually imagine you say, okay, in that Planck second, I want this result in the future, right? Now what you do is that you run the information backward from the result you want. into this presence of Planck second, which will tell you what information has to be present in this Planck second to produce that specific outcome.
Yeah.
And so that you know what to modify in this Planck second, right? Who you have to be in this Planck second to be that future you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's interesting you saying that, because we were feeding the vacuum the information, but the information that was coming back was a little bit
different.
Yeah, mixed. It was like, it was different to what I was expecting, if you know what I mean. It was
and that it will
confusing. It was confusing. We was sending it information. We was expecting a nicer or a more compelling information back, but it was more of a confusing information. And I understand what you mean by sending it the right information. So
because now think about it this way. I could get technical there and talk about Einstein field equations and 4 vectors on a geodesic. I mean, very quickly, I mean, 4 vectors on a geodesic in standard equations of space-time. The information, so think of the 4 vectors of space-time going around the geodesic and coming back. In standard physics, in standard relativistic equation, they come back the same, unchanged after 1 rotation. But if there's torsion or Coriolis effects, or if those are considered in the equation, then they don't come back the same. They come back changed, right? So it's telling you that the universe is constantly learning, right? Through the so of course it's not gonna feed you back ever. You know exactly what is expected. It's gonna tend towards that if you give enough energy in the system. If you make that visualization strong, and I'm using the word visualization loosely, you know, I'm talking in terms of information in the future. So you might intend that very strongly, and you might approach that. You might get close, but while this happened, there was all the rest of the universe interacting with that information, modifying it along the path. So it's going to be a little bit off, because if it was perfect, then the universe would end in that Planck second. It would have nowhere else to go, because it had produced exactly perfection, or exactly phi, right? Like infinite phi would be over, right? Everything would end. So, but because it misses every time, or it's more nebulous, it's more confused, it's not quite that every time, then there's a possibility for the next Planck second to learn, or to get closer again and closer again. Right.
It was weird, because it was very distorted, the signal coming back. We was expecting
very clear.
Yeah, very clear, clarity, this new continuum of an amazing life, but it was very distorted. The information was coming back. It was very confusing, and it was
because you can't isolate the system from the morphogenetic field of the whole planet. So you know, you can't just like all of a sudden overthrow the influence of all the information network present, you know. So
I was trying. This is years of work, and obviously big investment in equipment, but we're there. We're trying.
It's impressive.
We're trying.
It's exciting and impressive.
Yeah, we with illnesses and that, we find that pretty easy, and obviously a normal person with negative emotion, that is really easy. But what we were trying to do is obviously after you're probably my biggest inspiration of all time, because you're the only one that's literally said that Akashic record, consciousness, all these things are just the same thing. And what we understand is that consciousness is the thing that's creating your reality, whether we like it or not. So what I wanted to do was change consciousness so that reality was a little bit different. So we changed consciousness and was expecting the feedback from the universe just to be a little bit different, but it wasn't. I don't want to shatter anybody's illusion, but it's nice, but it's not what I was looking for.
Right, but you think of it in incremental steps towards the desired effect. So, so the impact is not, you know, exactly what you want, but hopefully you're able to help the information network to tweak towards, you know.
I think it needs some tweaking, and if we can just eradicate, I don't know, the past and the information that we are sending into the future, that's good enough. We'll have to work with
well, you know, we're kind of globally cleaning up the past, you know, with each individual cleaning up their genealogy, right? When I mean clean up, is like, think of the information in the structure of space as crystal, and think as you think of trauma in that crystal as fractures in the geometry. And so as we reestablish proper geometry, then our future becomes highly coherent, right? Like a crystal becoming more translucid, you know, as like less opaque, right? Less distorted as we move forward. So that I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I'd love to understand your experimental setup better, and the energy levels you used, and how you use the plasma. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Nassim. We'll be working on it, and I think we will get there.
Right.
But this is all very experimental. It's like I don't believe anybody else in the world's doing it, and
it's bleeding edge.
And I think your work, you're at the cutting edge. I don't believe anybody in the world, you, William Brown, all the rest of the guys are at the cutting edge of where we need to be. But what I'm trying to do is take the theories and just turn them into reality.
Right, sure.
I come from an engineering background, so I've been a therapist for 25 years, but I was an engineer before that. So it allows you to design and build equipment, because taking two massive plasma tubes and suddenly sending packets of information into that is not an easy feat. This is this is like 3 computers. It's very complex soundboards to be able to send this information into the plasma tube.
Yeah, I mean the engineering of the amplifiers have to be very precise. You know, people are asking me, why is it taking me so long in my laboratory to get, and it's over the top. The complexity is not easy, and the precision in order to make coupling at those I mean, you're talking of coupling with something that's billions of times smaller than an atom, you know, in the Planck field in terms of bits of information. So you can imagine the amplifier oscillators have to be extremely precise. Otherwise, you're going to miss the mark, you know, by a long shot.
And
thank you so much, Stuart, for coming on and doing your questions. And, you know, some people were asking if there was a link to learn more about your work, and you're welcome to put that in the chat if you'd like, so that people can check it out. And I know you and Nassim will have more conversations in the future. It sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, Nassim, thank you.
Bye-bye.
So Nassim, I think we need to go just for a few minutes and share some things about what's happening with the Academy, and then you can do some closing statements. How's that?
Sounds great.
So I'm going to put a few links in the chat right now. And the first one is a link to our Explorer Path. So if you loved hanging out with us today and you want to get involved in our educational offerings, the Explorer Path is a free path. There's clips from Live with Nassim, faculty Q&As, breakout groups, things like that, the science news, all of it's there. And it's our commitment to making this information available to everyone. So that's our Explorer Path. And then the second link I'm putting in is one to the Academy, the delegate program. And if you like to be on this call, this is what we do every month. We're with Nassim, we're with the faculty, we're with each other in video breakout groups. And there's an extensive learning dashboard where you get to have all kinds of information. And we're really having some fun in the Academy. So I'm putting this link in here now. And there's also a code that if you put that coupon code in when you sign up, you'll save $64 on the delegate program. We want as many people as possible to come in and join us and be in this conversation and begin to apply these ideas into the heart of our lives. It's time to do that. So there's a link for that. If you're interested in learning more about the art crystal, I'm putting another link in here right now. We have a page that has a lot of the research information. It has some videos and things like that. And there's a link if you want to order your art crystal. So that's there. And then last but not least, I'm going to go back to Nassim for a minute, and then we'll go to Maura. I love that we put the poster in your background for the Peru, Bolivia trip.
I
and
know
every year,
little angels walked in here and put this in the background.
I know. See how they are? So I'm putting a link to that page right now. We only have Nassim 60 spots left, and we haven't actually even got where people can register for the packages yet. They can make a deposit right now. We're getting ready to just fill up. And every year we're going to a different sacred site, and we're taking the crystals with us. I don't know if you want to say something, then I'm going to bring Maura on so she can tell us a little bit about the program too. But this addition to the Academy of taking students with us to different parts of the world, I know is a big inspiration of yours, and I wonder if you want to say something about that.
Totally. You know, we have some, I think it's correct, some 90 countries involved in the delegate program taking the program at this point. Thousands of people have been taking the program, and it's like, hey, let's get together, you know, every year. And let's get together in a place that's inspiring, that's energetic, that, you know, and since we have the little coherent crystals now, let's gather the crystals in that region at the same time and structure the space and ignite the energy that I believe was already present in these regions of the planet at the time. So, you know, Egypt was the first attempt. It was remarkably successful. It was amazing. I don't really have words to describe what happened during those, I think it was like almost 3-week travel in Egypt to all the temples and what people experience and what I experienced. I mean, it's just remarkable. We have some cool photography as well of very strange objects, you know, showing up. But as well, you know, the impact. I mean, literally so many people came back from there. Most people came back saying, I'm completely changed. I will never be the same. And it was a lasting change. I feel it. I feel like I'm not the same person. And so I'm so looking forward to Peru. You know, I did this on purpose that Peru would be the next delegate program. There's a very specific alignment between Giza, Peru, and if you know that alignment, then you'll be able to guess where it'll be next year. But this year, Peru is going to be very, very powerful We have an amazing schedule with so many site visits in regions that, you know, people don't get to go usually. You know, seeing things that with archaeologists that have been working in these regions for many years, and that can bring us to places that that most people don't go to. And so we have an amazing agenda for 16 days. You know, the delegate gathering is the 10 first days. And Maura can give you more details, but it includes so many amazing visits, including, you know, an evening time, you know, during full moon in the high mountains in Machu Picchu, and it will be, you know, it'll be so powerful. There was full moon on the Giza plateau when we spent the night with the 3 pyramids there at Giza. And it was a very powerful event. I so look forward to opening the next portal over Machu Picchu, and our, you know, all the trips include everybody receiving an art crystal. So, you know, everybody arrives with their art crystal. When the art crystals get closer together, they get stronger with each other. And we'll be able to assemble those in very sacred spaces and produce very powerful energy events. And again, these energy events are measurable. Now, you know, there's things I'm permitted to say and there's things I'm not, but I assure you that what we did in Egypt was noticed by let's just say, certain organizations and measured. So I would just encourage people to participate. It's wonderful. And I really look forward to, you know, spending, I mean, the group in Egypt was as well, like the quality was just remarkable. You know, I mean, when you look at the quality of the community in the delegate program, you know, the people that are involved and like the quality of our group, and you know, what's going on in the thinking out there and what is people interested in it, it's just remarkable. It's like we're literally like birthing a new world. You know, with the help of course, all these other organizations out there, like Barbara McSubbert and Greg Braden and you know, all the, you know, Bruce Lipton and so on. I mean, it's not just us, but like the quality of the people involved at this time in this transformation that's occurring around the planet. It's mind-blowing. I'm about to leave for Europe, and I'm so excited to connect with the European public out there, French and the Swiss and Monaco and so on. So you know, I'm excited. It's going to be a wonderful trip. So if you can, please come and be with us in Peru 2018 for 16 days of like the greatest adventure.
Yeah. Well, let's bring Maura on for a minute so she can tell people how they can make a deposit right now and then register within the next couple of weeks. Hi, Maura. Maura's been helping to plan this trip.
Hi, beautiful family. And it's been such an honor and quite a journey putting this together because Peru is not used to having a huge delegate group come through. So this is going to be off the charts on many levels. We're staying at gorgeous, luxury, stunning hotels. We've got chartered trains. And best of all, as Nassim mentioned, we're going to some of course, the big places, Ollantaytambo, Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu. We're going to hike up to Huayna Picchu and do really special things. And we're also going to be going to different archaeological sites, amazing temples, ruins that most people have never seen and some have never heard of. The that's really exciting. And the way you're going to want to do this is just go on to the website. And there are different packages available. And what you'll see as pricing is our standard for double occupancy for the first 10 days, that's Cusco. The next 6 days is the special Bolivia section of the tour. And you can either do just Cusco or do the full 16 days of Cusco and Bolivia, because we're going to build so much resonance. And we're going to be doing these amazing art crystal meditations, art crystal activations together with Nassim and all of the delegates. It actually builds so much energy that we want to continue riding that wave into Bolivia together. And in Bolivia, we're going to definitely go. Someone had asked a question about the island of the sun, the island of the moon. We're going to be going out onto Lake Titicaca and exploring some of the islands out there that have sacred structures and amazing archaeology. We're going to go to Pumapunku, Tiwanaku, amazing, awesome places together. And we've got some really special things planned, from ceremonies to wonderful gatherings together. What you'll need to let us know is if you're going to come single and you want your own room, or if you're going to come. Yeah.
Hey, Maura, none of those choices are ready right now. We don't have the registration happening. So really all they can do today is to go and make a deposit to hold the space.
Great. Maybe we'll send out a nice, once people start registering, we'll send you all a little survey of some sort just to prepare. So go ahead, go on, put your deposit down, because Teresa said there's 60 spots left. My intuition is it's probably already gone down. We might be at 52 or 53. And Nassim, I just want to thank you personally for your incredible dedication, your powerful mission, the way you just continue to serve all of us and bring us all together, and the work you're doing in the world, and that we got to take it to Egypt with the crystals. And now that we get to take the art crystals and be together in Peru and Bolivia is a true gift and amazing blessing of a lifetime. And I just want to personally thank you for all you've done all these years to get us together, to get to do things like this.
Thank you, Maura. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Maura.
Thank you, Maura.
Well, thank you, Nassim, for taking time with us today. And also William Brown. Let me just spotlight William for a second. Thanks so much, William. Always appreciate you fielding questions. And Jamie from Facebook. Thank you, Jamie, for helping out on Facebook. And Nassim, maybe just some closing thoughts for today. I noticed one thing when I was looking at the chats. And, you know, we always hope that these virtual classroom events really help nourish people, make them feel good and excited and inspired. And I saw so many comments like that on the line. So if you were inspired, I hope you'll join us in the Academy. And yeah, any closing comments as we enter into spring or fall, depending on where we are on the planet.
Yeah, this is the time in the planet where, you know, depending on where you are, but, you know, if you're going into spring, where the energy levels are going up and, you know, nature is sprouting literally out of branches and the ground and everywhere. And, you know, it's a time for love and romance and you know, and feeling close to each other. And so, so connect with it. Connect, you know, like we have a tendency to get so busy in our daily routine that like we sometimes forget to connect with the natural cycles, to connect with the larger gear of the universe that we're embedded in. And, you know, so I always tell people, go vertical, you know, don't just stay horizontal, go vertical. And take the time just a little bit every day to go vertical and think about the larger picture and the amazing miracle it is that you're alive, that you're able to experience this, that you're able to experience the world, no matter how difficult it is. It's a beautiful, mystical amazing miracle. That doesn't put it outside of physics. It's still physics, but it's the miracle of physics. And it really is precious. So, and you have a precious part to play in this amazing gearwork of the universe. And so blessing on playing that part with us and growing with us and connecting with us. And until the next time, may the vacuum be with you. And we will connect back on the channel of the delegate program. If you're able to participate, or we might see you in person in Peru. So everybody, so much blessing on this amazing moment in our history.
Thank you so much, Nassim. What a beautiful session today. And we'll see you again soon. I think we have a live with Nassim this week with the delegates, so they get a double whammy with you.
Wonderful.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye everybody.
Thank you so much.